Final patch of set 10 has just dropped, which means there's only 2 weeks left before it's gone for good. If you want to make that last final push to climb a bit higher in ranked before the set is done, these are the 5 best comps to do it with. And before we get into this first comp, as this is the last video I'm going to make for this set, I just want to say thanks for all of your support. We had just under 100 subscribers before this set started, and we're now closing in on 2,000, so I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to watch my content. I'm going to be putting out even more guides in the next set, so if you're not already subscribed and find these helpful, then please click the subscribe button below. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. First up, we have my favourite 3-cost reroll comp of the set, which is 8-bit Riven. This was very strong last patch, and it's only got stronger in this one, as both Garen and 5 Edgelord have received buffs. The main goal is to activate 4 8-bit and 5 Edgelord with 3-star Riven as your main carry, and then Viego as your secondary carry. Positioning is critical in this comp, as it relies heavily on getting Riven to dash to the backline and pick off enemy carries, so make sure you place her on the edge of fights to avoid getting stuck on their main tanks. Augment suggestions for this comp are any reroll or strong survivability augments. Riven can be quite tanky as she has a shield built into her kit, but any combat augments you can find such as Vampirism will really help. March of Progress is also a great choice if you see it, as it allows you to slow roll for Riven at level 7 while still leveling up. Itemization for Riven should be focusing on QSS, Titans, and any healing items such as BT or Hodge. QSS or an augment that gives CC immunity is a must, as she needs to be able to get her shield off to survive. The second unit you should try to itemize is either Viego with any additional combat items, or Garen and Maud with any tank items. Try to prioritize an armor shred item such as Even Shroud for one of your tanks, and then put them near Riven to ensure the units she's attacking have their armor shredded. For the early game, look out for any 8-bit starts to start stacking the 8-bit high score as soon as possible. Corki isn't a great item holder for Riven items, but the benefit you get from stacking the 8-bit high score early on is worth it. The other options for starts are any of the strong melee 1-cost units such as Yasuo, Vi or Olaf. You want to be leveling to 7 as fast as possible whilst preserving your econ and health. Once you hit level 7, you want to sell your current headliner and look at doing a slight roll down to look for a Riven headliner. Once you find the Riven headliner, depending on the version it is, you want to either activate 5 Edgelord or 4 8-bit, and from there you can econ back to 50 and slow roll any excess gold for 3-star her. Once you hit 3-star Riven, you want to level up to 8 and put in both 5 Edgelord and 4 8-bit to cap out your board. If you manage to find an 8-bit emblem on the carousel or a tome, then you can look at going 6 8-bit by dropping down to 3 Edgelord, or you can simply drop Caitlyn for a strong utility frontline like Lowy or Yorick. You can pivot from this comp by skipping slow rolling for 3-star Riven and instead go 8 and play around Pentakill with Viego as your main carry.
A clever fox is never caught.
Moving to another strong comp that gets even stronger this patch is KDA Ahri. This has received 2 buffs, one to the frontline in Nico and one to the 7 KDA breakpoint. You can play either 7 KDA 3 Spellweaver or 5 KDA 5 Spellweaver depending on the headliner you get, but with the buffs to 7 KDA it will be much stronger with the KDA version so that you can hit 7 KDA without an emblem. For augments, you want any of the premium AP related augments such as Jeweled Lotus or Magic Wand, or some of the trait specific augments such as Raise the Tempo. Outside of those, any econ or tank related augments for your frontline will work well. New Recruit is also a good pick here, as it allows you to go to 7 KDA and 5 Spellweaver at level 9, which is very strong. Itemization, you want either blue buff or Shojin on Ahri and then Nash's Tooth. As we're playing Superfan, Ahri will automatically get a death cap as long as you get her as your headliner, but you can go for a Kali or Nico KDA headliner and then find a 3rd AP item for Ahri instead, and it shouldn't matter too much in the win rate. You should then focus on itemizing your tanks with Magic Resist Shred and Anti-Heal. Going into the early game, you want to be looking for a Superfan or Spellweaver start with a good AP item holder such as Annie. I prefer Annie headliner as this is a bit stronger than going for Lilia or Kennen headliner, but as long as you have a decent mix of frontline and an AP backline, it shouldn't matter too much. As this is a 4-cost carry comp, you want to follow the standard leveling pattern of hitting level 8 around 4-1 to 4-5, ensuring you make your interest thresholds whenever you can. Going into the mid game, you can either play 5 Spellweaver or 5 KDA board with Superfan. These boards will give you the easiest transition into your final board and will save you from any complex roll downs and getting dizzy at level 8. You've managed to find a few Seraphines at this stage, you also have the option of staying level 6 or 7 to slow roll and 3-star her as your main carry. This has a very high top 4-8 and is one of the strongest 2-cost rerolls currently played. Going into the late game, you want to be hitting level 8 around 4-2 to 4-5 and rolling down for an Ahri headliner or any KDA headliner like Akali or Nico. Once you hit, you should look to slot in either KDA or a Spellweaver depending on the headliner version you get, so that you have both 5 Spellweaver and 5 KDA activated, or 7 KDA and 3 Spellweaver. As the majority of your units are low cost, you should already have them 2-starred and be fairly stable to go to level 9. Pivoting from this comp can go to the Pentakill board if you manage to get a Karthus, Akali or Viego headliner on your level 8 roll down. Simply swap out Echo and Kennen for Gnar and Maud.
So many souls await.
And next we have the comp that just won't die. It's been strong for nearly the entirety of set 10 and looks to finish that way too. You can use any Pentakill headliner such as Karthus, Viego and Maud, as well as the Executioner or Edgelord versions. There are 4 possible carries for the comp, 2 AD and 2 AP, making it playable regardless of the components you get dropped throughout the game. If I was trying to climb in the last 2 weeks of the set, I'd use either this comp or the Ahri comp, as they're both very reliable at getting top 4s. For augments, there isn't really any in particular that are a must pick for this comp, but I would be looking out for anything that helps gain mana such as Infusion, or any that buys time for Karthus to ult such as Cybernetic Bulk and Martyr. Healing Orbs is also a standout augment in this comp, as Karthus is great at picking off weak units which will trigger the augment. And finally, the Pentakill augment Metalheads is of course great for this comp, and is a great indicator to commit to the comp early on. Itemization should be very simple. Build Shojin and any AP items you can make onto Karthus, any tank items onto Maud or Nico, and then any AD items onto either Viego or Akali, whichever one you manage to 2-star first. As I mentioned before, this comp is very flexible with its carries, so you can look to itemize whichever headliner and 4-cost unit you manage to 2-star, but make sure Karthus has a Shojin, else he won't be able to get his ability off and have an impact onto the fight. For the early game, depending on whether you got dropped AP or AD items, you can look to play something like Olaf and Yasuo as an AD item holder, or Annie and Senna as your AP item holder. I usually look for Superfan Pentakill or Edgelord starts, as they're fairly strong boards throughout the entire game, plus they make the transition to Pentakill at level 8 much smoother. Be on the lookout for any KOs too. If you manage to 2-star her early on, you can look at re-rolling to 3-star her at level 6, and use her as the main carry instead of Karthus. Going into the mid game, you want to look at building your Pentakill board ready for your roll down at level 8 for your final board. If you manage to 2-star Kayle without finding her as your headliner, it's at this point I'd scout the lobby to see if anyone else is playing Kayle, and if they're not, I'd sell my headliner and slow roll for Kayle 3. Otherwise it's just a case of leveling up to 8 for your main roll down for Karthus, Viego and Akali. If you didn't 3-star Kayle, you should be leveling to 8 between 4-1 and 4-5, then selling your headliner to roll down for a Pentakill headliner such as Viego, Karthus or Maud. You should be stable once you have 2-starred 2 of your 4-cost units, plus have 2-starred a tank in Nico or Maud. From there, I'd econ back up to level 9 and cap out the board with either 7 Pentakill or 4 Executioner if you got the Executioner version of Karthus. You can pivot from this comp into the KDA Ahri comp pretty easily, as they both share the core Superfan units, and you just swap out the Maud and Gnar for Kennen and Echo.
You want style? You found her.
This next comp fell out of the meta in the last patch, but Samira received a big buff, so should be more than viable again. It's a dual 3-cost carry comp that looks to 3-star both Samira and Urgot. For your headliner, you really want Country as the +1 trait, so you don't have to run Katarina, but the actual unit doesn't matter too much. Ideally it should be Urgot or Samira. As this is a reroll comp, any augment that help this, such as Army Building, Trade Sector or Prismatic Ticket, are a solid pickup. 3's Crowd is by far the best augment for this comp, and if you find it, the average placement for the comp skyrockets, as the majority of your board are 3-cost units. For itemization, you should focus on Samira, but if you find yourself picking up more Urgots and think you'll 3-star him much earlier than Samira, then you can look at prioritizing his itemization, but remember that Last Whisper is a must for the armor shred. The other main unit you want to itemize is your tank, which in this case is Thresh. I've suggested 3 premium tank items, but just build whatever tank items that you can find. In the early game, the only Country unit at 1 cost is Tahm Kench, so you'll struggle to hit Country at 2-1, but if you get lucky with the loot orbs and hit another Country unit, you should breeze through the early game. The other opener I've suggested is Heartsteel, as this will allow you to get some extra econ to hit level 7 quicker, and it has good item holders in Aphelios for the Samira's items. In the mid game, you want to activate 5 Country as soon as possible, and if you don't have Samira or Urgot as your headliner by the time you hit level 7, you should sell your headliner and do a slight roll down to get one of them as your headliner. From there, you're really just looking to slow roll for 3-star Samira or Urgot before going to level 8. The late game for this comp is really leveling to 8 once you've hit everything else, and slotting in one of the strong frontline 5 cost like Alawi or Yorick. This isn't really a composition that needs to reach high levels to get top 4 finishes, and the success really sits upon your 3-star and your 3 cost units.
Violence solves everything.
Finally, this next comp is the most underplayed comp with a positive top 4 rate, which means you should be uncontested in the majority of games that you play. I have used this comp to climb earlier in the set, and judging by the fact that it's still one of the least played comps with a positive top 4 rate, it looks like that's still possible. I created a dedicated guide for this a few weeks back, so I'll leave a link in the description for you to check it out. And that's my final guide for this set over. Let me know what you thought of this set in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more content when set 11 drops in 2 weeks.